Well, first off, congratulations. If you're a broker who has made it to this phase, that means you have an offer. But not to be a bummer, this is one of the shortest sections because it happens the least. Remember that business brokerage funnel? That also means agents get the least amount of practice in a stage that is very important. Also note there will be drama, so hang on tight. More so than any other phase in the deal flow, this is where things can get hairy, emotions run high, and buyers and sellers often feel a loss of control and a feeling of what's next during this phase between offer and close. So it's important that you continue to guide them, set expectations, realistic ones, and be able to answer the following questions. First and foremost for buyers and sellers is, how long does this take? It depends. If it's a cash sale, it could take probably about a month. And if there's an SBA loan involved, longer, possibly 3 months. Another variable is the landlord and lease assignment. So keep those in mind. So on the buyer front, typical questions are, how long is the trade-in period with the seller after the purchase? Well, good news is that's negotiable. That should be written into the offer. For example, 2 weeks, 20 hours a week, 5 days a week, that kind of thing. Sellers often want to know, or buyers, how restrictive the non-compete is for the seller after the purchase. You cannot hamstring someone and keep them from doing business, but it has to be within a reasonable sort of industry time frame, geographic parameters. Oftentimes buyers want to start training before the closing. I highly recommend that you do not do that. We all want friendly buyers and sellers, but we want to limit as much as possible that meaningful sort of training sort of relationship. Buyers often know when they can sign the lease. At the closing is the answer, right? These two go hand in hand. You cannot sell a business without transferring the lease, and you should not sign a lease without having first transferred the business. So everyone hold their horses. On the seller front, they often are like, okay, cool, we have an offer. Can I tell my staff now? This is a big fat, absolutely not under any circumstances. And then I will hear, but they're like family to me. I'd feel bad not telling them. And I hear you, but I have never seen anything positive come of a business owner telling their staff their place is under contract. There's a few things that can happen here. One, the staff quits. And that buyer who had this expectation that they were buying a fully functioning turnkey business, which includes, a functioning staff, has a staffing problem, right? And which no one wants. And it causes anxiety and uncertainty if these sort of things are brewing ahead of a closing, meaning it may not close. Another thing that can happen here if a seller jumps the gun is closings often get delayed. So, say they tell their staff and the staff's cool and it's, in 2 weeks we're closing. And then, the landlord's dragging feet and that closing does not happen. The staff gets anxious. They lose trust and faith in the seller and they start to make up stories, right? That's what we do when we don't understand something or know the answer. And then the other one is the plane just falls apart, right? And again, as a seller, you don't want to lose credibility with your staff by, saying this big thing is happening and then it doesn't. So I've seen all those things happen in a variety of ways and severity. So please advise your clients to not tell their staff until the day of closing. Is it hard? Yes. Is it emotional? Yes. But the alternative is worse. So how do we transfer utilities? That's another common one. And again, that really can't happen until the day of closing. You can get your legwork done. Like I have a handy dandy sheet that has all the account numbers and vendor information. So you can have it teed up, but again, you don't want to go transfer utilities and there be a delay or the closing blow up. Again, you want to be organized, but you can't do a lot of things until the day of closing or, the next day or so after. Another one, which I highly recommend you steer your clients away from is, okay, cool, we have an offer. Can I close the business now? Absolutely not. There's a few reasons here. Well, let's start with the most black and white. Some leases have going dark clauses where if you close, you're in default. And if you're in default, you cannot transfer the lease, right? You cannot do the assignment. That's one. Two, it's not a good look, right? A buyer bought an ongoing business and sees that you have closed it, that is a distress signal, and they will get spooked. There are certain rare times that it makes sense to do this. One, if it's talked about and agreed upon. If it really is a distress situation and the buyer knows that and the landlord knows that, so if everyone's on board, or say, the business owner is also the property owner and they're like, I'm out, and or if it's an asset sale and say, it's a restaurant and it was Jimmy's Pizza Shack and the buyer is, vegan fine dining, there's smaller chance of that blowing up. But again, everything can be overcome with good communication and everyone being in agreement. But please don't let your seller close the business. When do I get the money? At closing is the short answer. One caveat on that, if it's an SBA loan, it will have to run through some channels and up some ladders to be approved. So it may not be at the closing, which can be disappointing if you don't set the proper expectations. And something you will hear from both sides is, why is this taking so long? Like I mentioned before, this can be a very emotional process for people, an emotional part of the process. And when things take long, people assume there are problems. So this is where you as a broker come in with your clear communication, setting expectations, and making sure all parties know, and that includes the buyer, the seller, the lender, if there's a lender, the landlord, and the lawyer, are all in communication. So there's no panic of, oh crap, this has taken, triple the amount of time I thought. The sky is falling. So make sure everyone knows the sky's not falling, unless it is, but you should tell them promptly. And yeah, congrats, you're almost there.